I'm a 41-year-old woman, but I remember vividly when I was 4. My little brother and I shared a room with twin beds. I recall it well. His bed sheets were Star Wars, while mine were rainbow bright, just setting the stage a little. Our beds were parallel to each other, facing a long and tall closet that was somewhat shallow. The door to the bedroom was to the left of the closet. I was lying in bed, playing with my strawberry shortcake doll, when I heard the muffled whimper of my 3-year-old brother on his bed, to my right. Me, being the protective mother hen that I was, without looking over to him, asked him what was wrong. He answered with a soft sob. I remember putting down my doll and starting to walk over to him. As I was closing the gap between us, about halfway there, he points towards the closet. He hid his face and started to sob hysterically. I remember stopping and following his tiny pointing finger with my eyes. What I saw still gives me the chills to this day. In our closet was what I can only describe as an extremely tall void of darkness in the shape of a man. He was well over 6.5 feet tall and seemed to be wearing a trench coat of some kind that went past its knees. It had what looked like an old times western hat that was small but rounded. Mind you, there were no details, only the outline. But his face, where the eyes and mouth would have been, there were swirling colours of, like energy or heat waves or something. I honestly don't know how else to describe it. His mouth, or the colourful energy swirls where the mouth would be open, wide as if he was screaming at us at the top of his lungs, yet we heard no sound. Now thinking back, we had a shelf in the top of that closet, but he was standing through it. There was no possible other way. But this was not the scary one. On the floor next to this being's right knee, crouched down, was another creature. When I saw this creature, I realised everything that was in my bladder. I just peed all over myself. I was terrified to the point of paralysis, yet I was standing, stuck, frozen in terror, wet from urine, in the middle of our bedroom. It looked like it was about to take off in a race. It was on all fours, and looked like it was about to start running straight at me. It too was in the shape of a man, yet smaller and more animalistic. It was as if the taller man was holding it back, like he was walking a dog almost. My mother and father must have heard my brother's screams. I couldn't make a sound at that time. I remember them picking one of us up, each to soothe our cries. You better believe once I could, my lungs let loose of the most horrific and blood-curdling scream. By that time, I was in full panic mode and unable to describe what we had witnessed. My father was holding me. I can still remember the smell of his old leather jacket. It was the early 80s and he was a biker. His back was facing the closet. I thought he was there to save me, but when I looked up over his shoulder, I could still see the tall man with the colourful eyes and screaming mouth. I tried to show them. We tried to show them. But neither of our parents could see them. My dad slept in the room with us that night because we refused to sleep without him. A couple years later, and a whole other state away, the same man, minus the colourful eyes and mouth, terrorised me for a good couple of years. This time he was made of total darkness. He was always there, it seemed, standing in the corner of my room, watching me in bed, or gliding down the hallway past my door, turning its head to look at me as it passed, peeking around my doorway, but as if it was laying on the ceiling. Its head and hat poking around the top left-hand side of the door before slowly sliding back. I was honestly traumatized, to tell you the truth. I would have terrifying nightmares that I truly 100% believe this being caused. Night terrors is more like it. For example, one of those night terrors was of him sticking a meat hook through my sister and hanging her on our bedroom door. I also dreamed of these little hooded beings coming out of a hole under a giant live oak in our backyard and catching cats to eat them. My childhood was terrifying, to say the least. Disclaimer, I was never allowed to watch anything but cartoons and things like Fraggle Rock. So I was not influenced in any way that I can recall. No one believed me but my brother. I know this seems weird and random, but I named the man Cottonhead. I'm not sure why. But every night I would cry and beg my dad not to put me to bed because Cottonhead would come. And every night he would tell me, it's just a dream. I don't remember when this exactly happened. I just remember that I was in high school. I'm 26 now. So years ago, my best friend had just recently got back into contact with his biographical dad. Didn't have a good relationship with him, as he left my friend and his mom early on and became a drug addict. But that's not important. What is that my friend started to have a relationship with him again. And my friend invited me and a couple of our other friends to go hang out and spend the night at his dad's. There were 4 of us in total, including me. My friend's dad was a bit weird, as we decided to walk to a corner store, and he asked us to basically steal a couple of traffic cones in the city for a construction site nearby on our way back. So I didn't really like him, and didn't take a lot of what he said seriously. He didn't seem like a great person still. So when he told us later that day that the second floor of his barn work shed was haunted, I just scoffed. Figured he was trying to scare his son and his friends. We straight up told him bullshit. So he took us to his computer and showed us some pictures he'd taken up there. He told us about this weird mist that only appears in photos. If you just shine a light through it, you won't see it. Sure enough, in the photos, there's a weird mist. I just think it looks like dust, until he reaches a specific photo. When it pops up, the first thing I see is a skull with faded red eyes. The mist in the photo was forming this skull, clear as day. We were all freaked out by this, so naturally, being dumb white teens, we want to investigate. We get flashlights, and I grab my camcorder to use as a voice recording device. I didn't have much else. I think I could have used my phone at the time to take a voice memo, but I had no idea how to do that. Before we head up in the barn, my friend's dad warns us not to move anything up there, because the spirit doesn't like it when stuff gets moved. So we grab our nuts and head up the stairs. While we're up there, it's basically pitch black since there's no windows, but it was later in the day, so even if there was, it would still be pretty dark. We also all get this extremely uneasy feeling as soon as we reach the top of the stairs. First thing we test is the mist. We shine the flashlights and just see random crap and tools up there. Looks like a hoarder's house, but no mist or dust or anything of the sort. So I pull out my phone and snap a couple of pictures with the flash on. And sure enough, when we look at the pictures, there's a misty fog that can be seen in the pictures, but not with just the flashlight. Nothing was forming in it, it was just random shapes, but it still creeped us out. Next thing I did was hit the record button on my camcorder and started just asking random questions. You know, like the ghost hunters on TV did all the time. I don't remember exactly what I asked, but I'm pretty sure they were the typical "who are you" and "how did you die?" As I'm asking questions, one of our friends accidentally kicked a dumbbell, and we just get super silent as we hear it roll for a few seconds. As we sat in the dark with no one saying a word, my best friend pipes in really quick, saying maybe we should leave. We all agree and start hurriedly going down the stairs. Our 2 friends are in front of me. I'm second to last and my best friend is behind me. As we're going down, my friend behind me starts shouting, "Go, go, 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 hurry!" and starts shoving us to go faster. When we got to the bottom, he told us that he felt something big and menacing behind him, and he was terrified to look back. While we were down there, we also went through my camcorder to see if I picked up anything. After one of my questions, you can hear someone clearly say, "Get out," in a calm, deep voice. I've never been to that house again. I really wish I could find that camcorder, because I guarantee that recording is still on it. I moved into this new duplex as my sister was moving for work, and I couldn't afford the rent on my own. Two of my co-workers lived there, and their rooms were upstairs. My room was downstairs in the partially unfinished basement. At first, everything was normal, and I got settled in. My room was big enough that I had my bed in the corner, and had enough room for a two-seater couch and my TV and Xbox. And my one roommate had his gaming PC set up in the open, unfinished portion of the basement. I began getting an uneasy feeling at night in my room though. I would often feel like I was being watched, and would think I could hear the odd noise or bang through my headset while I was playing games or watching a movie. There was never anything there though when I looked, and I did have roommates in bedrooms above me, so it was easily explainable. One night, that all changed though, as I headed to bed. I had been feeling like I was being watched all evening. As I switched off the light and crawled into bed, all was normal. After a few minutes in bed, I felt really anxious. I could feel someone in my room. You could just sense them. A quick glance in the dark didn't show me anything, so I grabbed my phone for light. Nothing there. My mind is playing tricks on me, I'm sure. So I turn off my phone light and try to get comfortable again. As my eyes adjust to the dark, suddenly the shape of a tall man with a hat is barely visible in the corner of my room. A slightly deeper shadow than the shadows around my room. I grab my phone light again, but once again, nothing is there in the light. I hid the lights under the blankets, and the shadow figure returns in the dark, just seemingly appearing from the shadow in the corner next to my door. My light switch was actually outside my room, a weird quirk, but it was an unfinished basement, and my room wasn't actually intended to be a bedroom. I didn't know what to do. But being too freaked out to sleep at that point, I decided to use my phone light to get me to my TV for more light, and then turn my bedroom light on one step at a time. I ended up watching a show to calm me down, and eventually fell asleep on my couch with the TV and lights on that night. I began seeing the Shadow Man fairly often after that, even in the semi-dark with my TV on. He never stepped out of that corner, just always seemed to be standing there, watching me. And so, I got used to his presence. His presence was unnerving at first, but I realised he didn't give off a threatening vibe like the face I had seen watching me through my window a few months before moving. He was just there. In my research I did after the activity escalated, it sounds like most experiences with these shadow figures are like that. They're watchers, somehow a neutral entity. I'm home alone. My sister is gone for the weekend, and I'm sitting in the living room playing guitar. Out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly see a face watching me from the porch window, and as soon as I turn my head to look directly at it, it's gone. I decided it was my eyes playing tricks and kept playing guitar. Suddenly, the face is there again, and once again disappears. I again kept playing, but this time kept my head slightly more towards the window so I could focus without turning my head. Sure enough, it appears again, and I'm able to clearly see a grey face. Not much for hair, skin looks leathery and wrinkled, and it's smiling disturbingly at me. At this point, I storm over to the window, suspecting it's a friend with a creepy mask. As soon as I turned my head, it went away again though. So I flick the light on and see nothing. It's winter, so I go out the front door with my boots on. From the shovelled walk I took, but seeing no one to blame, I crossed the fresh snow to the stairs, going to the second-story porch. And there are no footprints on the stairs, or by the window where I clean up. Has anyone else seen a face like that? I live in the Canadian prairies, so there could certainly be ties to a native culture, or maybe it's something I picked up somewhere else. My family is religious, including my sister I was living with, but I'm not a practicing Christian, if that has any bearing. One weekend, my roommate was out of town, so I had the place to myself. After I had gotten home from a friend's place, I decided to chill on the couch upstairs instead of downstairs in my room for a change. So I put a movie on upstairs and was on the couch with a snack and my cat. It was around 12:30 am when I suddenly thought I heard the front door. I remember wondering why my roommate came back tonight, as he had planned to be gone the whole weekend, and I'm sure it wasn't one of my friends, as I was sure I'd locked the door. I said hi as my cat went to check it out, but I didn't get a response. So naturally, I got up to see what was going on as well, as I swear I could even hear someone moving around by the door now. As I start walking over to the door, I can see my cat standing at the top of the 3 stairs coming up. His fur is bristled and he's standing statued still, like he isn't sure if he should run away or not. As I peek down towards the door, the first thing I notice is the door is locked. No one's standing on the landing. Weird. What has my cat so worked up then? That's when I notice long, skinny, grey-white fingers wrapped around the corner from the basement stairs. I'm still just peeking around from the top, now frozen in place as I watch this hand and forearm extend out over the stairs, seemingly twice as long as the average human forearm. I must have made a noise because it stopped suddenly and then started to slowly retract back to the basement stairs. As soon as it was out of sight, I heard creaks on the stairs. It sounded like this thing had now retreated to the basement. My cat, not being the brightest, charges down the stairs, so naturally I start to follow. I turn on the landing and see my cat 3 or 4 stairs from the bottom, looking and listening, before he took off out of sight to the left of the stairs. As I took my first step down on the stairs to follow, I heard 3 loud bangs from where I saw my cat take off to, and then heard the unmistakable sound of a cat hiss. It wasn't a usual cat hiss either. It sounded like the same intensity I had heard years earlier when one of my family's cats got taken by an owl in the night. I froze. Part of me wanted to go check if my cat was okay. The other part of me was sure I was walking into a trap if I did. So I stood there, knowing going downstairs would be a grave mistake. I tried calling my cat back up to me, but was only met with silence. Complete and utter silence. I was sure my cat was dead, that this thing had killed him. After a few minutes of silence and intense fear, I decided this thing wasn't actually being aggressive, so I should let it be. I also told myself there's no way I could go down there until daylight. I made my way back to the couch and turned on something to help distract myself, but also made sure I could keep one eye on the top of the stairs in case it came back up to finish the job. I think I was just starting my second distraction movie when my cat suddenly came back upstairs and jumped back on the couch beside me. I checked him over and he seemed perfectly fine, no injuries or missing hair, and he seemed as nonchalant as ever. This calmed me down quite a bit, and I eventually fell asleep on the couch. I actually continued to live in that duplex for another 6 months or so. My then girlfriend and her daughter stayed with me for a few months before we ended the relationship after my roommate moved out. Her daughter would wake up scared in the middle of the night, saying there was a man in the corner of her room, even after my girlfriend had a local pastor bless the duplex. The activity escalated slowly. I would be on my couch in my room playing a game, and I would suddenly get goosebumps and feel very cold, like a very cold draft would suddenly rush through my room in the winter. Then there were the noises that started. I would hear quiet tapping or soft footsteps on the painted cement floor off and on. Just a couple taps or steps here and there, or shuffling along the floor in my room, but always just little enough I would think my ears were playing tricks on me. Then, one day something tangible happened. The only bathroom in the duplex was upstairs, and there was a heating vent that opened down to my room, but also straight up to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and while I was in there, I heard the distinct sound of an empty can landing on the painted cement floor. As I go downstairs, I ask my roommate, who was gaming at his desk downstairs, if he missed a recycling bin with a can. He had his headset on and said no, and looked confused. When I went back into my room, there was an empty can laying in the middle of my floor. Weird. I wasn't a clean freak, so having a few empty cans in my room wasn't uncommon. I also didn't dust much, so I was able to find the location the can was in before. It was about 3 inches in from the edge of the side table. There was a perfect ring of dust, like it was neatly picked up and dropped on the floor. I threw the can in the recycling and went back to my video games. But this is when the activity escalated even more. I also got a cat shortly after this, as my friend needed a new home for him. His fiancée did not like his cat. I started waking up to noises in my room at night, more shuffling and footsteps on my floor. Some things I chalked up to the cat, some seemed too big or not a common cat sound. I also started to wake up feeling like someone was pulling my leg hair or pinching my legs. This freaked me out because there was never anything there and there were never any remarks on me afterwards. The cold spots also got worse. I started to randomly get cold feelings on my arms and legs while on my couch, like someone was beside me and put their hand on me. One of the most memorable cold spot happenings led me to believe one of the spirits was a child. Have you ever had a kid standing behind you while you sit on a couch? I could literally feel the cold go up my back, like a kid behind me leaned on my back. I then remember feeling the cold spread to my shoulders and around, like the kid leaned on me and wrapped its arms around my shoulder. It was unmistakable. The shuffling also became very real one night. I must have left a grocery bag on my floor that night. I could hear it rustling around, kind of sounded like my cat playing with it though as well. I could hear it travelling from my couch over to the foot of my bed, and then it stopped. Then, all of a sudden, I heard my cat hiss loudly from the window above my bed. He then jumped down next to my head and took off out of the room. I grabbed my phone, but before I could turn the flashlight on, I could feel the weight on my bed by my feet, like someone sat down almost on my feet. I quickly pushed myself up to a sitting position and turned on my flashlight. Once again, nothing was there. Both me and my brother slept in the unfinished basement. Our walls were made from collapsed cardboard boxes and curtains, as we weren't allowed to put up real walls. We always got the creeps in the basement. We had a TV with our N64 and PS, and at night you would feel like you're being watched as we played games, and hear shuffling on the painted cement floor. But you never saw anything more than a quick shadow from the corner of your eye. I had crazy nightmares in this house as well. I would wake up thinking something was trying to kill me. I would have other dreams about real life at school that I believe came true. Deja vu was a common feeling those years. One night though, I stayed up later than usual, laying on my stomach and reading in bed with my lamp on. I remember putting my book down and turning off the lamp. As I rolled over onto my back, I could see 2 glowing red eyes in the darkness. They were at the foot of my bed and right beside my door. Before I could move or yell, it went through my curtained doorway, leaving it swaying like there had been a gust of wind. The thing didn't run. It almost looked like it levitated or flew. I was frozen in fear in my bed, knowing this thing was somewhere in the darkness between me and my room and the stairs. I must have yelled without realizing it though, as my mom suddenly appeared in my doorway, asking what happened. I'm not sure exactly what it was. One of my ex-girlfriends is First Nations, and she speculated it was caused by some form of bad medicine put on the government housing by a nearby community. But there's really no way of knowing for sure, and I admittedly don't have much knowledge about bad medicine and First Nations practices. This was in February of this year. We have a cottage about 45 minutes away from my parents' home. It's not too far from Huntsville, Muskoka, Ontario, if anyone wants a visual. Thing is, it's completely unfinished. The basement has no proper flooring and has a slight water leak right now, so there are plenty of fans and a dehumidifier running. As a result, one of us needs to check on the place at least once every 2 or 3 weeks to empty the dehumidifier in the basement and just make sure that everything is okay. To describe the house layout a bit, the entrance to the basement is directly in front of the main entrance. It's a long, skinny staircase down with a low roof, so you need to crouch on the way down. There is one crappy light bulb in the ceiling, so it's always super dark down there. There's one big room, then 2 hallways branching off. One hallway leads to a bedroom, and the other leads to not only a second bedroom, but also a washroom, all of which are completely unfinished and without lighting. The second hallway is much longer, and the rooms are just way off in the back corner of the basement and are completely dark. In other words, it's creepy looking. Okay, so let's get to the good part. The day it all went down. My mom and I are headed up there to empty the dehumidifier, have some lunch, and clean out some junk. We're slowly gutting the place. It had been nearly 3 weeks since we'd checked up on the place by this point. We stopped at the McDonald's beforehand and each got a fillet of fish combo. First time trying one, and it was actually pretty tasty. We got into the place and put our food on the table and then turned the heat on. The first thing we do is run downstairs to turn the water on and check the dehumidifier. After turning on the water, we head over to the dehumidifier and notice that there's hardly any water in it. It looks like it's only been running for a couple days. There's still the regular amount of moisture on the ground, but it was strangely empty. My mum and I head upstairs and she grabs her phone to text my dad and asks if he had stopped by to empty the dehumidifier recently. He said he hadn't. We were both puzzled as to why it looked so empty, but never considered there was a third person in the house with us. After heating up our food, we both sit down at the table and turn on the TV. About 5 minutes into our meal, we hear a massive bang downstairs, almost as if someone stubbed their toe really badly on a cupboard or something like that. We instantly jump and look at one another with a freaked out look on our faces. The TV is still playing rather quietly. Then we hear the worst thing. We hear a small grunt downstairs. It was unmistakably a human vocal sound. My mum whispers to me, "Is that a person?" And I smirk and nod my head yes. Although it was freaky at the moment, I wasn't really taking it very seriously for some reason. Looking back, this was pretty serious and this person could have been very dangerous. I just told her, "Grab your jacket and let's head out to the car and call the police." We gather our stuff and I grab a kitchen knife on the way. If you'll recall, the entrance to the basement is directly across from the main entrance to the house. So I had to make this peek around the corner and was fully expecting to see a person on the dark staircase. But luckily, it was just a series of stairs down into the dark abyss. Once we're out front, we jump in my car and she calls the cops immediately. Within 3 minutes, 4 cruisers show up and 5 cops got out. We told them what had happened and they headed down the driveway. They were in the house for probably 10 minutes before the door opened. A couple of cops walked out and boom. The third cop brought out a short, chubby guy with long black hair and pop-bottle glasses. They brought him out handcuffed out onto the front steps and another cop had a bag that looked like his belongings. We were in our car, which was up the street a bit and facing away from the entrance of the cottage. But my mom turned away as soon as he was brought up the driveway. She didn't want to get a good look at him, as the whole situation was pretty unsettling for her. They loaded him in the back of one of the cruisers and took him away. One cop came over and spoke with my mom for a bit about the situation. Ultimately, my parents had decided not to press charges against the guy when it was all said and done. He was just sleeping on the cold cement ground with a small roll-out mattress, even though there was a proper bed upstairs. This made us think that he'd been down that back hallway in the unfinished bedroom for a while. We probably walked downstairs to empty the dehumidifier and turn on off the hot water a number of times, and he was like 15 feet away in one of the bedrooms. He probably wasn't a bad person, and I'm personally at least a bit thankful he decided to empty the dehumidifier. Hopefully, he lived in there for most of the colder months this past winter. We're just lucky it didn't turn out to be in one of those crazy squatting situations.